Hey, how we doing, guys? Gray here, and today we're going to be discussing the current state of Draft League format. Yes, we're jumping on the bandwagon. It's it's the in thing at the moment. But for this, I am actually not going to be alone. I'm going to be joined by my good friends Galladite and Luxanse. If you want to introduce yourself.
You want to go first?
I'll go first. We are organized here.
Yes. Hello, I'm Galladite74. Quick intro. I'm a Draft League battler. Along with these two, I'm the only American in this call, so very, sus choice of partner.
I mean, you might think that Lux is, but he isn't. He is not American, despite his accent.
What's crack-a-lacking, everyone? Luxanse here, and I am here to represent the showdown side of things in this discussion, mainly. And I'm also from the Netherlands, I guess.
Oh, I didn't even know that. So
the more you know, the more you know.
Before we get into this, I will just say that a lot of this is going to be very subjective for the most part. Like, a lot of it's going to be opinion, so you don't have to agree with everything we say. You can agree with nothing that we say for all we care, but if you feel differently, then please use the comment section below. It'd be a great place to have discussion. I think all of us probably will be checking in on the comments and trying to respond to as many as we can. Secondly, this video might be a bit long, and also it's not going to be very visually stimulating. It's literally just going to be what you see on screen now. So if you want, just have it on the background. It's going to be something like a podcast, but
exactly.
They don't treat this like it's going to be a really entertaining video to watch, because it's going to be more of a listening video.
Exactly. So to all our audio listeners here, for you.
Lastly, I think we'd go amiss without saying, make sure to go check out Dr. Slacking. He is the person who has created this whole discussion within the community, and he's also a fantastic content creator, like one of the best, in my opinion, most entertaining that are around. Ironic that he is the one who says it's boring, because I think he's probably the least boring that we've got around at the moment. But the video and his channel will be linked down in the description below, as long as I remember, because I'm terrible at doing that. But I think introductions out of the way, we should just get straight into it.
One thing I want to mention is just a real quick thing as we start into this video. This video is more so, as Jack said, a discussion and not a direct response to Matt. Obviously, we're going to have elements in this video that, take stuff from Matt's video, and we are going to respond to it to some degree, but just to, put that in there.
And I think this is also more so as a Draft League as a wide community, not just the Wi-Fi upload, because that is a very small portion actually of the entire Draft League scene. We're trying to encompass much more than just the upload Wi-Fi side, because that is a very, like I say, small portion. Hence why Lux is here. Lux is our showdown representative, because both Migs and I are not exactly the greatest when it comes to knowing what's going on in Showdown nowadays. So
exactly. And I'm glad to be here.
I mean, you would want to hit me up for this, so I couldn't say no.
You don't have to call me out for that.
But anyway, before we go off on too much of a tangent, because we are all terrible, I think, at doing that. We'll try and follow some of the points. We do have like bullet marks where we're going to be trying to keep ourselves on track. But we'll start off with the current format, because I think Matt very briefly crossed upon this, is that the format is very stale at the moment, and I don't think there's much that you can really say. There's not many people who are like, nah, actually this is a really fun format that it keeps diversifying. It just doesn't. It's not the case. I know, Galladite, you got a point you want to share on this, so if you want to start us off on this.
Yeah, that's correct. A lot of things in Matt's video, and this is my only critique of that video of what he said, because I know Matt in that video said he did not believe the format was stale, which is, I think, the only big point in there, which I completely disagreed with, solely because I think in his video Matt compared football to Pokemons, which is fair. Draft League was, kind of centered around it being kind of sports vibe, but I don't think the comparison really works in this terms of talking about the format, because it's not the exact same. Pokemon is more, it's a game. It's not a sport in the end, and most games have this thing called the meta, right? And these sports have a meta, but it's very different compared to these games who need constant changes and balance changes, additions to the game in order to keep the meta interesting. Pokemon doesn't really get that. As you guys know, we only got it with like DLC and when new games pop up, basically. So I think when you're talking about format, it's just really hard to compare it to a sport like Matt did.
Exactly, and all of us here kind of watch Overwatch League, so a good way to compare it for that is in Overwatch, certain heroes are really good. However, if those heroes are really good for a long period of time, other heroes don't see any playtime, which makes it boring for the players because a lot of them love the heroes that aren't being played a lot, and some of those heroes will just get stale, and the meta will get stagnant. It won't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So, while new mons necessarily don't make a meta better, it is certainly something to bring new life to a meta and have people rediscover certain Pokemon and stuff like that, since everything will be in a bit of a chaotic zone.
Yeah, I think that Overwatch analogy is very good, or metaphor. It's more of a metaphor than an analogy. Like, if we look at a single meta being GOAT, which I know for the people who don't watch Overwatch, this is going to mean nothing. But effectively what GOAT was a single meta that was very much the only thing that was playable. And it went on for like an entire season. Like, it was a whole year of just this one meta, and as much as people enjoyed it, and like at the start it was a fun meta, it was a like for the people who enjoy Overwatch for its tactical side, enjoyed GOAT because it was a very team-based, very methodical way of playing.
And it was something that was never done before as well. That's very important as well, in my opinion. No one had ever thought of coming up with a composition like it.
No.
So when people actually made that at first, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
So,
but I think it also is very it's very similar to Pokemon in that when Gen 8 came out, we had a whole bunch of new Pokemon, we had a few new moves, all that sort of thing, new items, and it felt like a bit of a refresh from the last gen, especially because like you had Z moves that are no longer in there, you have Megas no longer in there, and the Dex was cut. So it was almost like everyone was kind of at the start.
Back to a level playing field, yeah.
Yeah. And then as the game goes on, obviously the cut Dex makes it harder for people to keep drafting different things. It gets a little bit boring. DLC comes out and it makes it a little bit better. Like there's a bit more moves, there's more mons. But at the end of the day, similar to like Overwatch with GOATs where it changed over time, like a couple of heroes changed and people were trying to play differently, different metas. It was just eventually it got boring, and we have been in a situation now where Sword and Shield, despite the DLC, despite the new moves, the new items, everything has become very boring because we have literally been sitting on the same base game for 3 years now?
Nearly, yeah. It's all just become stagnant.
Yeah.
There's no interesting meta developments. There's no interesting... Like, the most interesting thing that came out in the DLC as well was Urshifu. And that's just because it's a really, really strong Pokemon.
Yeah.
That a lot of teams need to have a Pokemon for to check.
Yeah.
But other than that, not much came out of it, really.
One more thing I want to add, and you guys already sort of basically talked about it, but I'll kind of sum it up here. Just because I want to circle it back to Matt's video a bit, because Matt did say in his video something like along the lines of where you could have like the first 3 gens of mons and that could just be it, and it wouldn't really be stagnant if it, switched it up a bit, which I agree. Like, adding new mons is one way to spice up the meta, but that's not really the only way that the meta can be spiced up. Like new moves, like at that DLC, Rillaboom got Gracie Glide at that DLC. So that made Rillaboom give a lot more life. Same with abilities, items could be added, stuff like that. So it's not necessarily adding mons, it's more of just, again, going back to changing the meta a bit.
Small quality of life changes made a big difference, especially in Isle of Armor. I think Isle of Armor was like the more exciting DLC that came out. Yeah. But at the same time, it's still like over time, because Isle of Armor was like 2 years ago. I can't remember when it came out, but it was probably about 2 years ago. And then Crown Tundra was about 6 months later. We have literally been playing with very small changes, and eventually those small changes don't add up. Like to
Isle of Armor was a year and a half ago, so
was it actually? It feels like longer. Not gonna lie.
It was a year and a half ago, but that's still quite a long time.
Yeah,
because Sword and Shield came out in 2019.
I think also what has not helped this is the fact that BDSP came out, and you can't play Wi-Fi draft on it. Nobody is going to take to Showdown and go, oh, yeah, let's create a BDSP. Well. Yeah, and then Legends Arceus, we're still hoping, like, literally the copium in us, or more hopium than the copium, is that we're going to get these mons come into Sword and Shield through some kind of home update, and, like, call me an optimist. I'm really hoping that we do, because I would love to use these mons.
Oh god, same.
But I don't have the faith.
The likeliness of it happening is it's questionable, yeah.
Yeah.
And it just goes back to, that's sort of on, the Pokemon Company's fault for, I can guarantee you if BDSP had, like, a normal time or PLA was a little bit more competitive base, a lot less people would be complaining about a stale
that, and if there was more, like, what's it called? You were able to transfer mons from BDSP to Sword and Shield or vice versa, then that would help a lot as well.
Even that,
would, those BDSP mons that weren't in the game before would spice up the meta again. Like, you would have shit like Gliscor, you would have, like, I don't really care what else. Manaphy you would have in the game. But you would actually have new mons to play with, not necessarily to make the meta that different, but for people to be like, oh wait, that mon is new, I can draft that again. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people also have pretty much used everything they want to use at this point.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that's an entirely different point that stems from this.
Yeah.
Is a lot of us, and I know the three of us have been in Draft League for a long time now. Even, like, I will go into a Wi-Fi Draft League, and at this point I'm trying to, like, okay, what have I not used? And in those top tiers, I have used everything. And it's just like, well, I can use this again, but that's kind of boring. And so I try and make up with, like, lower tier picks that I maybe haven't used. But I know, for example, like, you've been in an absurd amount of Showdown leagues, and at this point you have literally used everything that probably is even viable to use. Even some things that
aren't. Close to. But speaking of Showdown, I think for Showdown as well, the meta right now is just really stale. And I have this quote that someone that I know recently said. I'm sorry if this might be a bit confusing for some people, but people that play this game to, like, a high extent will probably know what I'm talking about when I'm reading this quote. So, my Bootsmon teleports into my Boots knockoff user, which knocks off their Rocky Helmet mon, which U-turns into my Rocky Helmet and goes into their teleport user as I pivot into my Boots teleport mon and teleport into my Boots knockoff user, which knocks off their second Rocky Helmet as they click rocks, which I defog as they go into their Boots teleport Pokemon. And what this quote is trying to say is that Boots plus Regen plus Knock are currently the three things that you see the most in the meta. Boots being such a free item to completely negate hazards is kind of ridiculous, in my opinion, because take for example Coco. If you want to have Coco, like, not take chip from rocks last gen, you would have to run leftovers, but you'd still be taking 6% chip every time you come in, because the leftovers only triggers once. Now you run Boots and you never take that chip.
Yeah. It's mainly like the defensive mons that have gained that, like defensive mons and the pivots. But also, let's not forget that in this gen we both got Flip Turn and Teleport.
Yes.
So the amount of mons that can pivot has probably, like, almost doubled.
Probably, yeah. And what doesn't help, obviously, is stuff like Torn T and Slowbro, for example, heavily benefiting off of boots as well, because Torn-T obviously doesn't like rocks, and Slowbro doesn't like things like T-spikes and spikes and rocks combined and stuff like that. So they can freely pivot into each other, and then they just generate value by existing, as any like damage that you do to them, as long as they can regen it off, it doesn't matter what that damage is, which creates a higher value for Nock, because you need those boots to be gone on those Pokemon to actually be able to check them properly sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is very frustrating to play against.
Like, last gen, Knockoff was one of the best moves. Now it is just the best move.
Exactly.
It just, like, to be able to negate an item that is potentially overpowered, that is again, that's not necessarily a fact, but it's an item that definitely means that defensive Pokemon are so much freer, pivots are so much freer, and I think that a lot of people, especially on the Wi-Fi side, don't necessarily see that as much, because it's a quicker way of playing, whilst on the Showdown end, the stuff that you probably won't see as much, because not many leagues are uploaded at this point for Showdown, it's prominent. It's just like, it is the way to play.
Exactly, and on Showdown it's a lot more about your positioning and trying to force an optimal win con, which obviously isn't always possible on Wi-Fi because of time limitations.
Yeah.
But on Showdown, getting that optimal positioning to win is what makes this meta so stale for like someone like me, for example, who plays a lot of Showdown.
Because there's the argument that like the current meta on Wi-Fi is stale because they don't have all of the mons. It's still equally as stale on Showdown, despite the fact that you can run Nat decks and you do have Omegas and all that sort of stuff. Like it's still like the same meta is kind of taken over, so to speak.
Exactly.
Right.
I think Migs, you wanted to say something as well?
I kind of wanted to just point out that this is a lot of people play for like the competitive aspects for it. So someone might ask the question, well, why don't you just like play something different? Well, it's like, I want to win, and obviously if this is the way you got to do, like, this is what you got to do to win, this is what you're gonna do, right? So exactly. It's not exactly about switching up your game plan or whatever. When we go, this whole conversation just revolves back to meta, and that's what it is right now, and it's not changing.
Like, for example, the TBL tour that is going to be going on soon. I'm a part of that. It's my first thing playing Wi-Fi in a while, but I probably will run boots and pivots a lot for the reason that it's just good. Like, there's money to win there. I want to win that, obviously. So, having the optimal game plan for that is very important. If that requires me to play boring, play boring.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's also the thing, is like, at this point, I'm pretty sure everyone is like there as a highly competitive player, and they just want to win. So you'll see the same stuff over and over, because that is the best strategy to be able to pick up wins. And it does become more stale because people are being less creative, but like, creativity doesn't necessarily always win you tournaments. It won't win you every game.
Exactly. I think a good example for that as well, from the Showdown side, is the LD Invitational Tournament, which happened this past year. I think towards like the fall, but the winner of that is actually one of the head Smogon guys, Finchinator, and he used a team which consisted of a lot of regen, a lot of pivots, and it was essentially a very standard team, but he won because, well, it's just that good. Like, everyone else that tried to do on a tournament with like their like worser picks generally didn't do as well. The two Pokemon that appeared most in the top 32 were Torn and Coco, and those were the most drafted Pokemon in the tournament. So
yeah, and as much as Lux is turning into a robot right now, yeah, I think we probably discussed like the meta enough. Like as much as it is stale, I don't think it is necessarily the main issue, especially in terms of Wi-Fi. I don't think it's the main issue. I think maybe with Showdown, like because there isn't other things like a smaller player base and the necessary uploads.
Exactly.
Like Showdown has a bit more of a concentrated kind of look at the meta being stale than necessarily Wi-Fi does. So yeah, I think when we come to like the Wi-Fi scene, the biggest issue for me, and I think you're the same, Migs, is that it's just completely oversaturated. Like the amount of leagues we got and the amount of coaches that are in like 3 or 4 leagues is just way too high in comparison to how it used to be.
Yeah, leagues are really hard to separate now and then. Like you put 2 acronyms together and honestly, I couldn't really tell the difference between most of these leagues. I know we make the joke about like every acronym's taken up at this point, but that's honestly kind of concerning just because for that, just because there's just so many of them. But even though there's so many of them, there's not much difference between them because there's so many overlapping coaches.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I guess I'll add on to another point I had on this topic is to me personally, not to me personally, it's kind of a fact. It goes back to Matt's thing as well. We consume draft a lot more than any other sport. That's a fact.
Yes.
There's way more draft content than any other sport, so it's a lot easier to get burnt out in terms of watching it. You don't get sick. I'll use American football for example, because that's what I watch. We watch it every Sunday, and it's 1 day a week. It's all day basically, but it's 1 day a week. So it's a lot less in your face about it. Overbearing, because draft, it's like at this point, it's almost every day of the week you get some type of video from some different league. So I definitely think there's an issue in that sense.
Exactly. So
not
only do you get a different video from different leagues, you also have to schedule your battles, you have to make time for your building, you have to make time for the battle itself, you have to, for Wi-Fi, you have to render, you have to upload, you have to make sure that all those things are going well while throughout the week. While, for example, with American football, it would be that you only have that Sunday. And I think another big thing for me, for example, is I don't play as much Wi-Fi anymore because I don't enjoy the format. Because one, I don't really care about content creation. Well, that is a mandatory thing nowadays for Wi-Fi leagues, which that doesn't speak to me at all. I don't care to upload my draft analysis on the whatever the fuck league and then upload my week 7, or I don't care. I just want to play the game.
Right. So for me personally, I'm not speaking for Lux or Jack here. The biggest thing on our whole like response sheet here is, I think this is the most important thing that's going to come out of my mouth today. But what I'm proposing here is the solution. It's a very simple solution. It's not going to fix all of our problems, but this issue is, again, it deters Lux from playing Wi-Fi. It's starting to deter me a bit as well, but we should turn some current Wi-Fi leagues into non-content based / upload required leagues. So people have a choice whether they make content or they don't make content. I feel like today back then it was content creators playing draft. Now it's draft players creating content because we're forced to. Exactly. Why not give Wi-Fi players the option? So, and I'll get to this next point a little bit later, but for the people who actually want to really make content, there's a lot less focus. There's a lot less people trying to fight for that spot, and there can be more effort into those people because those are the people who really want to make content.
I agree with that, and I think it's a very important thing to have. Like in Gen 7, obviously it was easier to do because we had stuff like replays and stuff like that, but that shouldn't completely make it in this gen, because we don't have replays, that we don't do that, because it just deters players from the format. Like nowadays, not only do you need the game and your playing device to play Draft League, you also need an Elgato. You need some level of understanding of how OBS works. Granted, it's not difficult, but it is something you need to have. You need to have a YouTube channel that you are willing to upload to. And some people just don't have all those things.
Nice.
So,
right.
I think it's important to have non-upload required leagues for people like, for example, me, that do love to play Wi-Fi, but not because they want to upload content.
Right, and at the end of the day, and I think we should have mentioned this earlier, draft is meant to be fun, right? There's obviously a big competitive aspect to it, and we all want to win, but we should just have fun, and I feel like giving people options creates opportunities to have more fun than others. I mean, or a lack of opportunities and a lack of options make it less fun for some people. And if the draft format's fun, I think that can potentially lead to more bigger things for the format.
I also think it's a case that if like some of the Wi-Fi leagues are upload and some aren't, it would, even if the leagues that are currently upload stay upload, but space themselves out a bit more, instead of having 3, 4, 5 leagues going on at once, in which coaches will be in like 3, 4, 5 of those. If there was only 1 or maybe 2 leagues going on at one time that are Wi-Fi upload, and then there was leagues that are running in the background which aren't necessarily upload required, that have different coaches. They have people who don't have the money or don't have the means to be able to get an Elgato, to be able to I don't even get the recording software. I know OBS is free, but they may not have a computer that's able to run it.
Exactly.
It gives them a chance to play, and if people want to upload, it's a different player base. It's somebody different that they're going to be facing.
That's a great point.
You still can have the same like Wi-Fi upload, which is probably going to be the same 50 coaches you see at the moment, but it'll be a bit more spread out. It's a bit more of a, at this point only UBL and say APA are currently running, and if there's only room for, I know, say 32 coaches both running 16, as a commissioner myself, I wouldn't want the same coaches as another league necessarily. So you would probably see 32 different coaches competing in that time, and any other leagues that are happening during that time could be like non-upload required, and of course people who want to can upload. But at the moment we just have a situation, and I'll admit that I'm part of this problem as well, because I'm in currently 3 or 4 leagues, I think 3 that are upload required, is that there is way too much overlap with coaches, just an absurd amount. In the last 2 years, I think I've been in the same league with likes of Matt O'Shea, even Galladite himself. I think we played maybe a dozen times during this gen. Like I played guys like Q, JB, like so many times. Shay, I play Shay in like every league that I join. It just got to a point where you're just playing the same coaches over and over, and as much as I love playing my friends,
for content, it's not that.
It doesn't make good content. And
eventually it does get boring. Like even without content involved, it still gets boring.
Exactly. Because eventually you just want to play someone new. Like, for example, I have a good friend, Hacker Killer. I think I've played him at least like 5 times, and I'm content with that. But if I play him again, am I going to take it completely seriously? No, not particularly. He's my friend. I just want to fuck around a bit as well, which I think is another issue with Wi-Fi. Because it's content creation, you can't really fuck around as much. You have to present yourself as a good player, or like people will be like, why are you uploading this? What are you doing? You know, that there's competitive integrity and stuff like that. Well, for example, in my last game I played versus a hacker, I brought a Pichu. He sniped me with Pikachu, so I brought Pichu to the game. Is there any reason for it? No. Is it funny? Yes. That is something that I also see a severe lack of on Wi-Fi personally.
Also, I have asked Ellie to stop downloading something, so hopefully the audio quality does improve.
I think to add to that, and I'm not gonna go into this point because this point kind of goes off a bit, and it's not really relevant to this. But I feel like there's sort of a reputation in the Wi-Fi community if you do things like that.
Exactly.
I know Seabad's a good example, so I'll just kind of leave it at that. But
I mean, like Chase is probably the first person I would think of as somebody who absolutely had nothing but love for the draft league community and then got run out because he was not, and he will admit this himself, he was not the best battler. He was somebody who would occasionally make playoffs, didn't always make the best plays, but he had the biggest audience, arguably, of the coaches that were left in, I would say around Crown Tundra time DLC, because I remember BBR was the last league it was in.
Yeah.
And he ended up just being so sick of negative comments from people who thought that every play he was making was the wrong play and everyone was trying to backseat game him basically, and he just got sick of it. And that was because everybody who was still around basically at this point is effectively like they are draft league pros, so to speak. Even if they're in the comment section, they believe they are the best players and they would have made the correct plays, when we actually need people like Chase. We need people like Feign Attacks, like Patty Trills, like Kyle A, because
like Magnitude
as well. Fucking Steve should not be told how to play the game that he created. No, he didn't create Pokemon, but he shouldn't be told
the
that
fact
he's
that the
bad
creator
at
of Draft League, like the fact that the creator of Draft League got run out of the Wi-Fi Draft League community, that's atrocious.
Yeah, that is absurd. And what we're missing now, and it's become very obvious, and Matt's video highlights this, is that we have, like Galladite said, we've had Draft League players that are making content. It's what we've all got at the moment. That's the only thing we have. We have no content creators making Draft League because those content creators got driven out. And that's not right. And it's pretty much taken away any kind of casual fan base that we had. And so we're not getting any new players in. I mean, we are getting new players, but we're not nearly at the same rate as we used to. Because people who used to watch Shady Penguin, used to watch guys like Nips, A-Drive, even like more recently Pokeaim, MV, Chimpact, like the people who watch those channels are no longer watching Draft League, so they're no longer interested in joining Draft League. And like that's just not a healthy balance. And I know like the latter people I mentioned are obviously very good at the game, so they don't have the same issue as the previous ones where they're getting so many negative comments in their comment section. We need those content creators to be a part of the Draft League community for the community to thrive.
Exactly, but even if those players were good, right, those latter ones, they still weren't enjoying their time here. So I think we should make it a more enjoyable thing as well. Like, granted, some of that is out of our control. Like, for example, Joey and MV really don't want to play with the timer. That's out of our control.
Yeah, that's
and I would go off about the timer, but I'm trying to stay on track, so I'm not going to.
Right there. Do you want to talk about this point, Lux?
Yeah, so another thing that we are wanting to talk about is something that kind of relates to what we were talking about, because we were talking about Wi-Fi a lot, but on Showdown it is a little different. For example, the influx of new players, Matt said this in his video, Wi-Fi and Showdown feed off of each other. That's not entirely true anymore, for example, because recently the Showdown community has seen a lot of influx from Smogon players as well, who want to try out Draft and like dip their toes in the water. And I feel like that is a pretty big thing as well, because like the separation between Wi-Fi and Showdown, and within Showdown itself right now, really hurts the overall community as well. Because, for example, the first thing most people look at when they see another Draft League is, oh, what's their tier list? Because that's where you can see like what philosophies they have and stuff like that. But for example, I've brought this example up a lot when we were preparing this video, but I saw a tier list recently for Wi-Fi where Melmetal was 17 points. And to me, that's really weird, because I don't see that Mon above 15. So,
Yeah.
in an 18-point system, let's clarify that as well, because some people like doing 20 and stuff like that. So, Melmetal was 17 out of 18 points. I don't see that mod higher than 15 points, where in Showdown. That might not seem like a huge difference, but you have a few of those in the tier list, and people will see that and be like, this tier list is dog shit. Like, what are they playing with? So, having that, granted, there's a bit of an elitist mindset, I feel like, in every part of the community as well, because they think this is our way to play the game, this is the right way to play the game, this is how we play the game. So, I think that doesn't help, but that is a very good example of seeing that mindset come out and have people judge each other based on, like, for example, the tier list, and then think, well, they don't know how to play the game, so I don't want to fuck with those people.
I think... sorry, you go ahead.
And just to add to that, and just to back up your point even further about how separated Wi-Fi and Showdown is now, back in, I'll just tell my story. Back when like early Gen 7, when I was really getting into draft, I started on Showdown. And one of the things I did was always look to Wi-Fi at some point. Like, maybe I can try this out. Showdown players today don't even bat an eye to Wi-Fi. Like,
Exactly.
they don't even consider playing. Most of them, at least, don't. So it just shows even more of a... proves even more that it's just so separated now.
Yeah, and I also think it was a case of back in 7th gen more so. I think like 6th gen was its own entity, that's when it started, but like 7th gen is where the bulk of like Draft League happened to this point. And a lot of the people who were playing in Wi-Fi were also playing in Showdown, be it when they were uploading or not. They played both, and so there was a mix. There was always that kind of blend of I know, like back in the day, people who are now just like exclusively on Showdown, the likes of Gypsy King, Zazo, like they were playing Wi-Fi as well. They were doing both, and to the like same extent, people who were playing Wi-Fi were playing Showdown. Whilst now it's very much become a separated entity, where a lot of the people who are playing Wi-Fi no longer enjoy Showdown, so they don't play any Showdown, and there's no kind of there's no Wi-Fi voice within Showdown like there used to be. And I think,
like,
yeah,
you go, keep going.
It's almost a case of like, as 8th gen has gone on, the divide has become bigger and bigger, and at this point, they might as well be two different games.
Exactly. And to go back to Miggs's point as well, I personally have had a very similar experience. I started on Showdown, looked to Wi-Fi because, well, during Gen 7, that was still going on. There was still big draft leagues happening. I was like, I want to get into like a Wi-Fi league because Wi-Fi just seemed so much more fun. And to me, it was. But then when Gen 8 came around, everything started to regress a bit, and I started getting more into Showdown. So I went back to more Showdown, and now I barely play Wi-Fi draft. The last two things I played were CGT, which I had to drop because I was going to partially move to the other side of the country, and now TBL Tour, which I can play because it's on the weekends. So it really is that divide, and there's not many people like me that still like dabble in both. I know Josh, for example, Ultra Player, a good friend of mine, said that he still plays Showdown, but honestly, I'm gonna call him out here. He knows that I love him, but the leagues he plays, there's like 3. One of them is BBL, which he also plays Wi-Fi. One of them is his own league, which you could argue is more of his own influence than his own Wi-Fi based influence, because that's what he mainly plays rather than a Showdown. And one is OLT, which is a very highly rated Showdown league in his fairness. So,
but going back to a point we brought up earlier, is if Wi-Fi wasn't entirely upload, would you see some of those Showdown coaches come back? At least, like, I don't think it's going to be a massive thing, and I don't think it will be a case of it happening immediately. But if there was an option for them to play Wi-Fi without the like
content creation part, I think there's definitely people that would. Yeah, there definitely would be people that would want to try it out at least.
Yeah.
But because there's so many things that you have to do now, they won't do that. And I just want to give one more example of a Wi-Fi, or mainly Wi-Fi coach that used to be very involved with Showdown. That's Liv. Liv used to play a shitload of Wi-Fi. She used to be like an admin in like every server, but she would also help with things like the TTM tours and Cash Gang and stuff like that. So she was always helping with everything. So I think, and like the closest thing you have to that now is that I play in TBL Tour. Like, it has become so separated, and I mentioned that there's a separation between Showdown as well, because you have the sports partner people and the Draft League and L people that are also separated from each other and also act quite elitist against each other, in my opinion, sometimes. So all those separations in draft are something that is also hurting the community as a whole, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think at least, like, I know we've been talking a lot about Showdown in the last bit, but just go back to Wi-Fi. I feel like there needs to be some kind of like cooperation between leagues, because I think at the moment, and I'm not like, I don't want to shit on anyone, I don't want to make it seem like people are being selfish, because I don't believe it is. Like, I know I'm one of these people as well, because I am both a commissioner and I'm also in a lot of leagues, is that we need to kind of just step aside and kind of put our own egos in check and try and get the entire community to run a little bit more smoother and a little bit more like with a function towards like making Draft League a little bit more consumable. Because at the moment it's just like, for myself as well, like on a weekend I have 3 battles I have to upload, and like I don't expect anybody to want to watch like 3 of my videos in 1 week, as well as 15-16 other coaches. And like, there shouldn't be the expectancy, and so it ends up just diluting everything down.
Yeah,
completely agree with that.
But ready to move on? Or
I was going to say, a lot of negativity there, and I think a lot of kind of at this point it's been a bit of ranting, but
a bit. Well, but I think it is warranted.
Yeah, I think this is almost kind of like a bit of a precursor to how we want to improve it, or how we feel Draft League generally can be improved. It's, again, this is opinions, and it's not necessarily this will be a foolproof plan in getting the numbers back up, because I don't think there is any way at this point necessarily, unless like
to get back to where we used to.
There would have to be a dramatic shift, and I think a lot of the bigger content creators would have to come back, because as much as we hate to admit it, like, it is a case of,
for the content aspect,
there needs to be eyes on the product for people to like want to get involved themselves, and also to want to like view more of it. So so in terms of Wi-Fi, that is, of course, Showdown is different, but
so just to be clear, this isn't a solution. This is just us proposing ideas to improve, because we've seen a lot of people just give out takes and stuff like that, and we just need to say it. If you don't have anything helpful to say, just don't say it. Like, there's no use for it. Like, if you want to provide a solution, go ahead, but otherwise, keep your mouth shut.
I know we just spent 45 minutes doing something that isn't necessarily helping, but like, I think we, like, for people who aren't necessarily in the know for a lot of this, it's good to have an insight on like why this discussion has even come about. But
I do personally believe that discussion is helping the community, because it's getting us to think, and it's getting us to. But saying just giving like a remark like, "Oh, draft is dead," like no one cares. No one's being helped by that. Just shut the fuck up.
Right. I want to state for this next section, it's going to be a little bit more, again, us trying to help the community as a whole. The way I perceive this, like how we're trying to improve this, is based on quality than anything, both from a content perspective and just a game perspective, like playing the game. So some of these points mix and match, because I truly believe personally, if you improve the quality of the game just playing it, the content will sort of follow after. Not fully, you still have to do things for content, but I think you have to fix the quality of the game first. So I guess we'll start this.
Yeah,
go for it.
We have a few points here. I'll talk about the first one a bit. Addison brought this up a few days ago, and I agreed mostly with her about league identity and the fact that there's a lacking of league identity. And for me, when I'm talking, I'm mostly talking about Wi-Fi, but I guess it's Showdown's kind of similar.
A little bit, but it also has more identity to it generally. But I'll let you go right now.
Yes. So I do believe, again, we already talked about how all these leagues kind of feel the same. And I definitely think that leagues need a bit more uniqueness / like niches to them. One example, and this is like the one part I disagreed with her when we were talking, is format. I'm not saying format is the only way you can make your like league, stand out. I'm not saying that at all. But I do believe that it is an actual help to making it stand out a little bit. For example, BBL is a great example. If I want to go watch Wi-Fi Ubers, the first thing that comes to mind is BBL because it stands out, because that's what they're built on. All their seasons are Ubers, and that's good, and they do a good job at it. At least I think the tiering's really nice there. But the point is that makes it stand out a little bit more. Again, that alone won't improve all these leagues because some of these leagues are trying different things out. But I think that attempt is really a step forward.
You go ahead.
No, you go. Actually, you go.
I completely agree, and I will say on Showdown this is a bit less of an issue, for example, with format, because we do have things like LC leagues, low-tier leagues. We also have BBL, obviously, but we do have some more Ubers leagues that do a bit of a different format where you can draft more Ubers and stuff like that. Currently, a multi-battle league is starting up. Like, you have so much more to Showdown at the moment as well that I feel like should be more common on Wi-Fi, but because right now everything just kind of blends because everyone's just kind of playing standard. But for example, if you had an LC league going on, or if you had a low tier league going on, that would also spice up a lot of what is going on.
Right.
I think also like a lot of leagues have just kind of blended into one, be it because of the coaches are being like it's the same 50 coaches involved, but also like I think from the last kind of year or so, the only league that really stands out as something that had an identity was CGT, and that's because CGT, it was very obvious what the purpose was for it, and that it was a highly competitive league. It was taking the best coaches that we could find at the time, and Lux, and then they put them all in one place. And if you wanted to watch super high quality Pokemon Draft League, at least in terms of Wi-Fi, that's where you would go. Before that, you had leagues like WBE. As much as people would like to shit on it for being like a content creator only league and not letting anybody else in, it had its identity as an entertainment brand. Like, it was built specifically to be a draft league full of content creators. And I think the only league that really has kind of blended the two together well since, like, in that meantime, is probably BBR, because we did have a combination of very talented coaches and also very talented content creators. And I think that was the last time that you can probably even look at it. And I think that BBR had success because its identity was a nice blend. Every other league since effectively has just been, these are very good coaches. This is a try-hard league. That's about it.
Yeah, every league since then has just been Ctrl-V, or Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. It's just the same. Like, there's no interest, there's no difference in format, there's no difference in players, there's no difference in identity, really.
And that's
where uniqueness is just gone.
And that's where I go back to, again, saying format alone will not do it, because again, like, I know ICP just had like their low tier season, like, that's kind of cool, but that alone will not make the league.
Exactly. What also doesn't help is that's just a season. Like, as you said, BBL is built upon seasons of Ubers, and that's their identity, that's their brand. Like, I heard of ICP before, and until you just told me that they had a low tier season, I did not realize.
because they didn't build
exactly
low tier. Yeah.
Same with UBL. Their off season was low tier, but I don't think many people were even aware of it.
No, and I only knew because I help you like build sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
I had a point for this and I can't remember what it was because I didn't write it down. So, good job, me.
I remember your point actually. So, something Matt talked about as well in his video is commentators, and personally, I think we all kind of like the idea of commentators. But the point that Jack wanted to make is that if you have people commentate over a battle, then they'll only watch one side. You won't watch the other side as well because it would just be the same thing. You would have the same commentators like talk over the battle, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of Matt's video was kind of focused on this, and I think that was one of the main takeaways he had was that commentators would make it more entertaining, and I don't deny that at all. Especially if you've got people who, like I say, are content creators instead of draft league players, because I think for the most part they are the charismatic ones. They're the ones who would bring in more viewers. It doesn't necessarily equate to success in draft league. It doesn't boost the quality of an individual's product. It does boost the league's product as a whole, but I've actually remembered another point I was going to go for. Taking away from Addison's video again, she mentioned like thumbnails no longer are like league specific. It's just this mon's on there, and I do this myself because I'm lazy. There is the mon that puts in work, there is some text, there is a background, sometimes there's a person's face. Like it's gone to a point now where some people aren't even putting like the league's logo in their thumbnails, and it just takes away from the identity. And I don't think that's not necessarily like the biggest takeaway from this, because I think there's other things leagues can do to improve their own quality, but it doesn't help when your own coaches aren't like making the league the main priority. They're making themselves priority. But I think also a lot of leagues have kind of put themselves in this position because they haven't put the effort in to really build up their own brand. And I went back and I checked GBA's channel. Like after this has all gone down, like I went and checked GBA, and they had like so many things on their own YouTube channel that you can go and watch. And like they put so much time and effort into building up the league and making it feel special, building storylines, like pointing out things that were good and bad, and like having coach discussions. Like they would have coach interviews and stuff like that.
Exactly. None
of this happens anymore. There is just like no attempt to try and give those coaches the chance to be like personalities, because when you're playing a game, it can be so difficult when you're concentrating to be charismatic and to try and show your own personality, because you're trying to think. You're trying to split your mind into two things of playing at a very high level and then also trying to give an entertaining commentary, and it can be very difficult to do both.
Right. I think you actually talked about that bullet point really nicely. I didn't. you smoothly transitioned to that. I wasn't expecting that, but I 100% agree to that. I think back then what made some of these leagues so interesting was the fact that they had their own channels and stuff. And obviously, this is just our take and our thoughts to try and improve the quality a bit. Is we should try and get back on track. Leagues getting back on track on doing that. Now, I obviously I go back to, let's use GBA as an example again. I'm on their YouTube right now. Their season 9 week 9 power rankings video is almost 50 minutes long. We don't have to do that. It can be like 20 minutes long or 15. Yeah. Like
exactly.
Just small steps to like small things. Like it doesn't have to be a big, whole project. Just something, a little bit at a time.
Exactly.
Those small steps can really improve the quality of both, content and even just, making the league stand out in general.
I think it's not just the quality of the league that becomes better with that as well. It's also the immersion that people have when they watch like a battle. Because, for example, I did power rankings for BBL Wi-Fi this season, and we did have. Now, granted, the things that came out of that were not very big, but we did have people like Josh kind of leaning into, oh, my team got rated low on the on the power rankings, so I will do better and stuff like that, as like a bit of a storyline going on.
Exactly.
So that to me is, while still small, it gives a bit more to the entire like sports thing and stuff like that. You want to hear that underdog story. You want to have that interesting thing going on.
Yeah, and I think also like things with power rankings. I remember watching them back in the day, where people would talk about, oh, this person, his prep was bad, or this person had amazing set here and there, or whatever. It gave the people who are like the coaches, it gave them something to go off of. There is currently nothing to really go off of. I think like there is nothing outside of, oh, I'm playing my friend here, and last time he hacked me, and so let's hope for a clean game this time. Like that is literally as far as it goes, and it's just,
I think
it's hard to build like your own kind of character and stuff like that as well. Like I know this is a little bit of a like it's something that you could do anyway, but it's hard to constantly keep thinking of ideas to like show your own character when you have things going on. We have other stuff on a league channel with other people who are not involved in the league as well, like analysts and whatnot. Their opinions, you can use that so much more effectively than any other kind of way of like. I'm struggling to put my words together because I haven't had much sleep, but you know what I mean.
I personally feel like it's also a bit of people don't want to step on each other's toes, and they're scared to do that. Like, for example, with your draft in BBL, I told you I really like a certain amount of these mon, and then everything else I just disagree with. You should not have drafted that, right? And I will tell you that because I know you.
But like, that's great because then like you can use that and be like, oh yeah, on the power rankings they said this mon doesn't fit into the team. I'm gonna make this work. I'm gonna make it MVP. All that sort of stuff. It does give you something to go off of.
Exactly, but I do feel like some people, I'm not saying everyone, obviously, but I feel like some people will take that and be like, oh, they said that about me. Well, fuck them, I'm not gonna listen to them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so, yeah. Like, while there's also people like you, like, I know it made you want to use, like, Magnezone and stuff like that, like, better and stuff like that. But I feel like there's people that will look at that and be like, and feel like someone has stepped on their toes. And I think that is also another reason why people do it less or are less like willing to do it, because they're like, oh, I don't want to step on people's toes and stuff like that. And granted, I would say fuck it, do it. But
one thing I really think you guys brought up some good points, and we basically kind of talked about our second point here without actually saying it. But one thing the last thing I want to say about like this whole like basically conversation we just had about this is that a lot of this does require effort and like work and stuff. So if some leagues just don't want to put in the effort and don't want to do all this for content, then maybe your league shouldn't be a content-based league. It sounds harsh, but that's the honest truth.
Makes calling me out here.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. And then the second thing is you guys really put it out there, and I'll just use the term we have here. It's storytelling. When you add all those things you literally guys just said, it creates different stories, so it's easier to make something out of your guys' games. Because right now, 9 times out of 10, you go into a draft battle, it's the same thing every time. Once in a while, you have a fun story, like my BBL finals game versus Q. I dodged him 5 times, and we finally meet in finals. That's a story.
I mean, me and Matt, Dr. Slacking, we haven't played since like Gen 7 until CGT, and like I tried to make something of that. Like Matt is one of the first people I met in Wi-Fi Draft League, and after all this time, as the two like only British people for so long in like the main leagues, I guess, we finally got to face off. And
there you go.
Like, story. Yeah, you've got a story there. Even if it's a case of somebody you face regularly, there's gonna be some kind of story, like even if it's
or some sort of rivalry.
Yeah, it's like if it's a close records, or this person I've never beaten, and then people that like, I've only ever lost this person once. You can always still build something off of that. There's always something you can go off, and though it can be difficult because like when you've never played somebody, you kind like that is the storyline effectively would be that I've never played this person before. there's got to be stuff you can go off, and that's where I think like the analysts and stuff like that would help in those situations
immensely.
But
I think.
And finally, I'll just say the last point here. It's just a lot of times now, a lot of the stories that people attempt to make are very self-centered, very focused on personal growth. Not to like say that's all bad, but that's not really helpful for draft as a whole.
I also think, I also think the inclusion of like the league standings and stuff would help, because I don't think many people nowadays even look at the standings or show the standings.
Or a record in the thumbnail, which I don't think I've seen that in ages.
No, I missed that. I kind of missed that.
Yeah, same actually. But like, I don't think people will care too much if you don't say what's happening in the league. Like, if you show off the playoff picture and you see that, I don't know, just for example, CGT, where you had like 6 teams that were on the same record going into the last week, and that is advertised as like anybody could make it into playoffs from these 6 teams, then that is a massive storyline going into the last week. It'll build interest. Everyone will then want to watch everybody's battle, like all the battles that are going on between those. Suddenly people are interested, they're wanting to watch all of those. And like another point that we kind of skipped over and just I want to go back to is like, is a test of running leagues, yes, but I think it's also going to be a case of when you don't have much time, when there's, for example, 3 leagues going on at the same time and you're competing in 2 of those leagues and running one at me, like you don't have that commitment time, so it's very difficult. But if, again, going back to oversaturation, where if leagues aren't overlapping so much, people will have that time to put into their own product, to be able to create league identity and stuff like that, instead of just going, oh, we want to put out another league now, so we'll make a Twitter announcement, Twitter announce the coach, and then that's it.
Yeah. And no, you go ahead, because I want to introduce like a new point.
Okay, like I think the best leagues that have done that so far would be CGT, where we had the announcement trailer. I haven't seen an announcement trailer, I don't think, in many years.
Addison was great with that. Like,
I wonder what 2 sexy people made that.
I know, right?
Keep going.
But also each week there was Twitter posts of standings, matches to watch. Like, there was a lot of interaction, and Addison was fantastic with that.
Playoff picture,
I know she was like shattered from doing it constantly, and it definitely
but it paid off so much.
CGT, in my opinion, was the most successful league that's happened recently, not just because it was like a obvious brand and the coaches in it were very high level, but because Addison put so much effort into making that league feel special. And that just hasn't happened with any leagues. Like UBL, I know they post like the weekly matchups and all that sort of thing, but that's it.
That's something that everyone can do.
And I'm not trying to call out Auto or Irish or Root for like how they run UBL, but that is probably the most work that goes in to like in any leagues, and like it's not even that much if you compare it to like past leagues like the GBA and the WBE.
So the last thing I want to touch on real quick on this effort-based point as well does have to do with the site. Personally, something that I at least judge leagues off of a lot is their docs, generally, or I used to at least, because that's where you can also see a bunch of personality in the league. Like, for example, take 2 showdown leagues right now, DGBA and MLP. They're both going on. They are very close to each other in terms of community and stuff like that, but their docs look completely different. Like, you can see that this was a completely different vision by one person and then inspired maybe a little bit by the other, but you can see that there's a different mentality and stuff like that going on. I personally lacked out Draft League Thumbnail. Everything looks the same. Everything feels even more like a copy paste. Like, if I want to look up, for example, let's say FIPA, if I go to Draft League.nl, that doesn't look any different than
CGT
has looked, for example, or UBL has looked, because it all just looks the same. And while it might not be a really big point for like the outside looking in, for someone on the inside looking towards the inside, it does matter to me, at least.
Yeah, and I get that Otto wanted it to be like, I get his intention. He wanted it to be more organized, more kind of have a track record and stuff. I get that portion of it, but then there's the downside of what Lux just said.
And like, it is a fantastic resource. I don't think we can, like, it sounds like we're very negative about it. It is a fantastic resource, and it's something that is obviously a lot of effort has gone into making it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think a little bit of customization, a little bit of like the ability to add the own leagues touch to it might go a little way into helping.
I would agree, and as Jack said, the work that has been put in by Otto and Luppy and everyone else that has worked on the project is phenomenal.
Yeah,
I would just like it to be a little less bland.
Yep,
I would agree. I think the last thing we're probably going to touch on here, I don't know how much else there is, but
one more talking point.
Yeah. I was going to say we're almost there.
Yeah. Do you want me to introduce this, or?
I mean, you can if you want to. Yeah, right. You go ahead.
So, our last talking point here is incentives. So, something that I personally see a lot more on Showdown than on Wi-Fi is incentives to play. For example, I spoke about the LE Invitational earlier a little bit, but their incentive to play was, if you win, you get a large sum of money. Now, I think all of us can agree, getting a large sum of money sounds pretty nice. A $750 prize pool sounds pretty nice.
Money is the best incentive, after all.
It is.
Exactly. Yeah. But even going back to Wi-Fi examples, like back in Gen 7, my first Wi-Fi league that I played in was PCL. And if Danza had won that, he would have won a Bob Ross waffle maker. If I had won that, I would have won a body pillow, because that was funny. It was something to add a bit of extra, I need to win. I have this storyline going on of, oh, if I win, I will get this, and I can do this and that and whatever with it. But the first time I've really seen anything like that on Wi-Fi in recent years is the TBL tour that's about to happen.
I mean, Pac had a prize pool. It wasn't a massive prize pool, but that was coming off of Stentoon's own back. He was the only person who put any money into it. But it's not something. It's not just like a money or like Lux said, a waffle maker or a body pillow. WBE had a championship belt, and though it's not necessarily something that's going to be helpful to you, like, how cool is it to have a championship belt for winning a Pokemon League? Like, that is something that you're going to just have probably for the rest of your life. Like, that is... It doesn't have to be money focused. I think that's the thing. Like, money obviously is probably going to be the best incentive.
Oh, yeah.
But there's so many more fun things you can do that are going to be able to pull people in, and also builds, like, interest in the league. Is, oh, the person who wins this gets a championship belt. Granted, that was the biggest league anyway, so it was going to pull. But if that was like something that was promoted and really pushed by all the coaches in a smaller league, then it does probably build interest.
Right. There's this a Jed's Showdown League, 8 p.m. It's a very, very small thing, but they have this like Hall of Fame section in the server, and it's like if you win the league, you get like a little picture in there and your replays there. Like that's nice. I want that.
Yeah. There's just no incentive other than bragging rights at the moment. I did put out a tweet today saying, like, we've heard a lot about draft league content creators and why like draft is dying and all this sort of stuff. I want to hear from the people who have already left, the people who have quit draft league, and why like they think that it's dying and where they would improve. And the most common response I got was, it was a lot of time for not a lot of reward. At the end of the day, you're putting in like an hour, 2 hours maybe for prep, and all you're getting is, oh yeah, I won that league. It's not like, sure, it feels good and you have that championship to your name. There's nothing to it. Like, it's literally just you have that championship to your name. And I think that if you want to try and draw more people in, having a prize pool, having like random shit that you can win for winning the league is going to be like a huge draw, not just for viewership, but also for bringing potentially back coaches who quit because they were just bored.
Exactly. I think it is very good to look more into that as well.
And also, if we consider this in line, I guess, with an esport, which is questionable because it's draft league, it's fan created. Like,
but it's fair.
Nobody is playing like Overwatch League or LCS or anything like that. They're not playing just to have fun. They are playing for prize pools. Exactly. And the draft league prize pool is never going to be like fucking League of Legends with millions and millions on offer. Yeah. But just something.
Even take something like speedrunning, for example. If you get a new record, you will get shown somewhere on a leaderboard. Like, hey, this guy has the current record.
Yeah.
We don't even have anything like that on Draft League. Like, the biggest thing was CGT being like, hey, all these people have won something.
Yeah. And I guess the closest thing to any kind of leaderboard would be like Draft League NL, like CCS. Or I think Showdown probably has an equivalent to it, I assume, somewhere. But
not really, honestly. It's more so... I can explain about Showdown a bit, but on Showdown it's more so a mouth-to-mouth thing, like...
Yeah.
Oh, this player's good, so you hear about him a lot, or oh, this player's good, so you hear that he's done well in this big tournament and stuff like that, which is more so how people get to know this player's good, this one isn't. Well, they do have like all-time records in those tournaments and stuff like that. You don't really have a consistent hierarchy, maybe, but you do have like, these are the top players.
Yeah. But I think, like, also I saw a comment from NumNexus actually on Ellie's tweet about this, and he said it was just not fun anymore. It's just full of like people who are granted fantastic at the game, but they are all just like, every league is like a try-hard league, and as much as that is fun, it doesn't make great content all the time. So I think like one thing we've got to start doing a bit more of is just having fun, effectively, and stop being so pressured into winning championships and stuff. Because I know I feel that after winning a championship, suddenly I felt more pressured to play well.
Just a last thing, but I feel like that kind of goes back to one of the earlier points you made, where if you're not having fun, then why are you playing it, right? In the end, fun is the most important thing, and I think that's a very good thing to like have as our last point, that in the end, what matters the most is that we're having fun. And I can clearly tell that some people in this community just don't have fun, only do it for content or whatever. Like,
if the community is having fun, then it will thrive at some point.
Exactly.
That's as simple as it is.
And also, for personal content as well, if you're having fun and it's very obvious in your videos that you're having a good time, you're more likely to succeed. And I know that I'm somebody who is very anxious, and so when I'm playing, I'm not the most entertaining person, and I'm more than willing to admit that. But like, if you're having fun, then you relax, and it does actually, like, look at Shady back in GBA. He had fun with it. It was very entertaining content to watch.
He was not the best battler, but God, I remember watching that. That was some of my favorite content back in the day.
Exactly.
Right. I'm really not trying to drag on, but I do have an example as well. My friend Trex, you guys know Trex, right?
Yeah.
He was right before BDSP dropped. He was like one of like the 2 people I knew that was really enjoying draft, and he was like the biggest like breath of fresh air in the community just because he was having fun with it. And that I really enjoy that. We need more of that. So,
but we're out of points at this point. We have nothing more on our list to go over. So
I think we've also mentioned everything we want to mention, at least.
Yeah.
Right. Pray that Jack makes chapters in this video, so you guys can find it.
Don't spread.
Yeah.
Very important.
But I was going to say, this is an hour and 15 minutes. We won't hold you up anymore. Thank you for watching the video. If you've actually managed to make it all the way through it, like, we'd absolutely appreciate it. And yeah, unless you guys have anything to add, I'll wrap it up.
No.
That's it. Nope.
Right.
Peace out, everyone.
If you did enjoy thanks, Lux. If you did enjoy the video, please hit a like. Make sure to go check out Lux and Galladite. I know Lux doesn't upload very often, but still, go and show him some love. And yeah, if you're enjoying the content, please do subscribe to all three of us and as many Wi-Fi coaches as you can. And until next one, have a great day, guys. Peace.
Yep. Peace out.